Welcome to the Life of Learning podcast. I'm Justus Frank, and today is a wee segment that I'm going to call the Dustbin of History, and this is on the word management. And the reason why I am exploring this is because recently I read a book called Drive by Daniel H. Pink, and in it he makes this statement. Perhaps it's time to toss the very word management into the linguistic ash heap alongside icebox and horseless carriage. This era doesn't need call for better management, it calls for a renaissance of self-direction. And linguistic ash heap, dustbin of history, is all kind of similar type words in terms of things that have lost their usefulness. And management seems to be quite possibly one of those words, and I want to explore that. So Daniel H. Pink makes these comments. He says, "We forget sometimes that management does not emanate from nature. It's not like a tree or a river. It's like a television or a bicycle. It's something that humans invented. Really, another word for management is control. And it is control, and management is something that humans do seek to do and do seek to impose on the world. But is management of other people really in sync with human nature itself?" So Pink goes on to say the idea of management, that is management of people rather than management of, say, a supply chain, is built on certain assumptions about the basic natures of those being managed. It presumes that to take action or move forward, we need a prod, that absent a reward or a punishment would remain happily and inertly in place. It also presumes that once people do get moving, they need direction, that without a firm and reliable guide, they'd wander. But is that really our fundamental nature? Or to use yet another computer metaphor, is that our default setting? When we enter the world, are we wired to be passive and inert, or are we wired to be active and engaged? And he goes on to say that he's convinced that it's the latter, that in fact we come into this world being wired, and we are active and engaged, and we do not just stay inert. That is not our natural state, to be inert and to not learn and not to grow and not to do something and not to be self-directed, to be curious and all those things. As he points out, we never see a baby or a young toddler who's not curious about their world, who's not self-directed. And so it's more of a case, well, why do we lose these things as we become older? It's not that we start this way. And this is also everything that comes into the way that we do school, and we think about education. We think about, in many people's minds, there's this thought that we need to make children learn, that it's our place to, as adults, to make children learn, because otherwise they wouldn't learn anything. They wouldn't want to learn. And this notion is completely debunked by the science that is out there. There's no evidence for this sort of thought at all, that we come into this world, and if no one was showing us anything and no one was making us learn things, that we would be completely, and that if no one was stimulating us and all this sort of thing, that we would remain completely inert and we wouldn't be curious about our world. No, we come into this world, we're born curious people, and we want to do things, we want to be active. And so this need to manage or to push people along to try and get them to do things, that's not a natural state. We want to do things, and that if you're having to use rewards and punishments and all sorts of things like that, you've gone about it the wrong way. And so that's why I do think there is some powerful notion in terms of throwing the word management into the dustbin of history, when it comes to when it refers to people anyway. Another really fantastic book is this one by Peter Gray called Free to Learn, and in it he mentions a bit about like where we sort of also get some of these ideas of control from. Back in the day, we of course were sort of more tribal and hunter-gatherer type things, and then eventually humans became more agricultural. And Peter Gray makes the point that with agriculture, humans began to extend the idea of control over nature to other aspects of the natural world, including children. And you can see this in our notions of childcare and education, which are found on agricultural metaphors. We speak of raising children, just as we speak of raising chickens or tomatoes. We speak of training children, just as we speak of training horses. Our manner of talking and thinking about parenting suggests that we own our children much as we own our domesticated plants and livestock, and that we control how they grow and behave. And so we've got this urge to control within us as human beings, which is fine when we're doing it over general nature, over plants and those sorts of things. We're trying to control our environment, obviously, to stay alive. But when we extend this control to human beings, that starts to become a bit of a problem. As I said, we have this drive within us that we feel that it's a part of an adult's responsibility to make children learn certain aspects of the culture, whether or not the children want to learn those things or not. Peter Gray also points out that just as children come into the world with instinct drives to eat and drink what they must to survive, they come into the world with instinct drives to educate themselves, to learn what they must to become effective members of the culture around them and thereby to survive. Those instinct drives, broadly construed, are curiosity, playfulness, and sociability. Natural selection works largely by building upon and modifying structures and instincts that are already present. All mammals are to some degree curious, playful, and sociable. But in our species, these traits have been greatly expanded and shaped in ways that suit our unique educative needs. And, this is the thing, we are curious, and we don't need people to actually force curiosity upon us. But then, of course, the question becomes, why do we feel that we need this management? Why are people so lacking in enthusiasm and drive? And I would say that perhaps the answer is in the fact that we stymie this curiosity that is within human beings, that we are naturally born with, and that actually we need to return to letting people explore their curiosity and to embrace their curiosity, rather than trying to force them into obedience and being under a system of management. So those are my thoughts around that. I hope you found that thoughtful as well. And again, I'd encourage you reading both of those books that I've mentioned in this podcast. And yeah, I hope to talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.